Ma'ams and sirs, welcome to the Jarrett Bellmund Show. We are not located on Main Street today, but it is still my goal to assist you in your personal and professional growth by talking to community leaders like our guest, Ben Smith. This episode is brought to you by Pro 16 Productions. Pro 16 Productions combines experience, passion, and innovation to capture the essence of your projects. Ben Smith joined Blue Ridge Community College as the director of the Small Business Center in March of 2019. Prior to joining Blue Ridge Community College, Ben served as director of entrepreneurship and education at the Cullman Area Chamber of Commerce in Alabama. Ben received his Bachelor's of Science in Business Management with a focus in entrepreneurship from the University of Alabama. Roll Tide. Welcome to the show, Ben.
Hey, thank you, Jared. Appreciate that. I had to throw that Roll Tide in there, bright and early. Whenever you hear that, you can't stay away from it for too long.
That's good. That's good. Yeah. So one of my college roommates, his family was huge Alabama fans, and I grew up in New York, so I didn't really understand college football until I got to college. And so when I visited his house and there was bathrooms and basements and hallways dedicated to Alabama and Bear Bryant, it was a education, a re-education of what college football is for me.
Absolutely, for sure. Everybody in Alabama who's a true fan has got one of those Coca-Cola bottles that's got Bear Bryant's face on it. So
yeah, you're not a true fan unless you have one of those. Right? Yeah. Well, you're actually in Alabama with family right now. Is that correct?
Yep. The benefits of remote work. So shortly after the COVID stay-at-home order was issued, I went ahead and got in the vehicle and drove all the way down here. And it's been really nice to be able to spend some time with family outside of work. And really just be able to enjoy that time with them. Being about 6 hours away, it's not usually something that I can take as much advantage of. So it's been nice.
Yeah, that's great. That is one of the silver linings of all this is a lot more time with family. I've personally decided to readjust how I work because I've enjoyed family dinners, and we call it family time at night, where the kids pick a game or an activity or whatever they want to do. And we spend at least 45 minutes to an hour doing that. So it's been
awesome.
Special. Yeah.
Yeah. We used to have something that we called family fun nights, and it was like usually a Friday, but it sounds like you're getting to do that every night now. Every night's a family fun night.
Yeah, so. It really is 5 or 6 times a week, which is great. It's really awesome. It's really special. So as the director of the Small Business Center here in Hendersonville or Flat Rock at Blue Ridge Community College, and I guess Transylvania County and really the surrounding area in Western North Carolina, what are you seeing right now with small businesses? So where are we currently today?
As you mentioned, the Small Business Center here at Blue Ridge, we cover the territory of Henderson and Transylvania counties. And so working with small business owners in that capacity since the stay-at-home order has been a really interesting journey. To kind of get to where we are, we have to know where we came from. Obviously, most of the business community during that first week or two was just kind of at a loss of knowledge, didn't know what was available, didn't know what was really happening, what kind of the limitations were. And so working with businesses to better understand what kind of options and opportunities there were to deal with the crisis, so that if they had to stay at home, how would their business operate? If they were having to begin working remotely, what kind of strategies and tips could they utilize in order to start working online, selling online, communicating online, holding Zoom meetings, doing exactly what we're doing right now. And then as those additional resources started coming out of Washington, we're talking about the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, the EIDL loan, as a lot of people know it, the PPP loan, the Payroll Protection Program loan. All of those things came out and started trickling into the economy. And as that happened, the resources just continued to build. And so getting people up to speed on that has really been our MO for the last month. We've continued to do that over the last week or two. The majority of people who probably have been in that position of needing to apply for those loans have now learned enough about them to be able to do that. But there still are some businesses and individuals out there that haven't quite gotten there yet and are needing some additional support. And so it's a combination between resource information, where to apply for loans, how to go about doing that, and then some other soft things like how to utilize your marketing in an intelligent way, how to work with your employees effectively, what kind of steps can you take from a cash flow standpoint in order to better improve your business. And so it's really the same kind of things, but transitioned based off of every kind of step that the economy has taken, from the initial stay at home to now we're looking at reopening here in about
we're talking here
less
on
than
the
a week.
5th of May. So hopefully in less than a week, we'll have some way to move forward. So I think it's great and amazing. I mean, Blue Ridge Community College has always been a huge asset to small business. And I know that during this time, you guys put on so many webinars and ways that people could just learn more, whether it be, like you said, the loans and how to apply for them, where to get more information on them. And I just appreciate you guys being a huge asset to this community. So we're starting we're starting to see people, not get their loans, right? Be denied or get their loans. And I think it's opening up an opportunity for businesses to make tangible decisions on how to move forward. So what are some things that you're seeing that people are able to do that are helping them move forward through this?
So, if we're looking at businesses who have gotten their loans and they're trying to determine what the best use for them is, biding their time until they're able to start operating again. It really depends on the industry that they're in. If you're looking at a restaurant, a payroll protection program loan that helps pay for 8 weeks of payroll for your employees is going to be able to bring those people back on and possibly work with carryout or takeout orders or delivery orders. And so that's really the intention behind that program, is to get the economy rolling again so those people have an income, those people can retain their jobs. They're not necessarily taking on unemployment benefits just for staying at home and not working. And it's staged in a way that keeps everybody healthy. You're not dealing with a lot of interaction between different groups of people in the public. And so, if we're looking at, the types of things that businesses can do now for, post getting a loan, it's really about lowering their expenses, trying to just survive as much time as they can until the economy continues to reopen over that 3-phase period.
Right.
And that's really different depending on what kind of business you're in. Obviously, if you're a restaurant, not a whole lot changes in this first phase 1 opening. Phase 2 is really going to be the stage where you're going to start seeing some limited capacity openings of, less than 25% capacity, et cetera. Those kind of changes that are going to be allowing the public back in. But right now, there's not a whole lot of things changing. And so it's really dependent on your industry. Retail is going to see some benefits here in the first stage. But managing your cash flow, reducing your overhead, and trying to find additional ways to increase your revenue streams are some of the best things that businesses can do right now.
Yeah, so I find it funny that those are 3 things that you said, because that's really stuff we should have been doing when we started our business, or years ago or months ago. And so do you think this has been an educational, we've been so blessed by a great economy where not only can we take risks, but some of us can, there's been the ability for businesses to not necessarily operate in the most ideal way. So do you think this is teaching some of these businesses and some of those lessons on how to handle cash flow, how to, additional revenue streams? That's a huge one.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I would say for sure. I think struggle and a challenge creates creativity, allows for creativity. And so anytime, there's a problem, an opportunity arises. And so I think all of these businesses have been forced to go through a particular challenge a lot of it together. And so there's some solidarity in that, that we all know that we're struggling in the same way. But the expression and the success that people are going to be experiencing is really dependent on how they go about navigating that. You mentioned, the hot topic is, diversifying your revenue streams. When there's such an extreme shift across your industry, that is absolutely essential. So oftentimes businesses can get kind of streamlined into the assumption that, they need their niche, and that's really how they're supposed to do their business, and that's the only way that they're supposed to do it. And there's some truth in that, but also, if you're an active business owner, you're constantly looking for opportunities as a small business owner, an entrepreneur, and you have to be able to take advantage of the shifts in the market. And to a small extent, globalism and the internet economy and so many things have been changing the economy quicker and quicker and quicker than it was when our parents were working, or our grandparents, for sure. And so this is just another iteration of that. And I think small businesses are becoming attuned to the fact that this is just part of working in a complex, rapidly changing economics field, which makes it really challenging, but also really exciting.
Yeah, it is. It is, because I'm getting excited to talk about this, but I definitely know and work with business owners that are not as excited as I am, and a lot of them are dealing with it well and getting creative, but it's a hard learning curve when you're pushed off the cliff. I liked what you said about niche, because I really, over the last 3 years in my career, have really focused on niches, and over that time, I found that niches are more building blocks than elimination of other things. And so what I found was, when I focused on one niche, I did better. But if I solely was only going to do that, I cornered myself or boxed myself in.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I've learned is to slowly but surely use the niches as building blocks to offer more than what I would. And I think that's kind of the point you were making there about that building other niches and revenue streams.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, to your point, having a niche, having a focus, becoming an expert in a certain field, being the go-to for a specific problem is essential. And being able to do that in different areas is really good, but sometimes it can take you away from, a higher profit margin in one area. However, if you can create the systems that are in place where the processes that are oriented across your business, the time consumption is simultaneous across those niches, then you're doing yourself a huge favor, and you're really growing exponentially your opportunities. So I think, to your point, it's a little bit of a mix and match. Building blocks is like the perfect way of describing that.
Well, thanks. I think I struggle with talking to especially like Main Street merchants, because their passion and their heart is to be on Main Street and be part of that community.
Right.
And so a lot of them are hesitant to go to online sales, because it's not why they open their business, and it's part of their purpose of why they pay the extra rent to be right on Main Street or on the avenues on Main Street. So there really is a lot of struggles there, and they've had to come up with different creative ways to overcome this than just the obvious, switch to online, which I think is great. And I love seeing business owners struggle, but I love seeing business owners get creative and put effort into new ways of doing business, and not just resting on the laurels of it's always been done this way.
Yep. Yeah. And I think especially businesses like downtown and even restaurants, sit down restaurants that have not particularly done a lot of takeout before would be an example. They're having to change the way that they operate. And it is a struggle for certain businesses that maybe have been in a vulnerable position already. And that's the unfortunate thing about this crisis, is that there's some businesses that just weren't in a good financial spot, or maybe they'd taken out too much debt early on, or they had, tried to just go through a growth experience. Whatever the situation is, depending on, where they are in their cash flow cycle, in their debt cycle, this could be potentially fatal. And so, it's not, I don't want it to come across from my side like, we don't take this very seriously, and that there's some businesses that are obviously going to be impacted, and it's just beyond their control. Because that, frankly, has been the case for some businesses, and I think for us to be able to look at all the different types of opportunities and try to support and give the best chance for success to all of these different businesses, really what we're trying to do, and helping them with a path forward.
Yeah, that's a great point, because I know businesses that will not make it, and it's because they took a risk and they said, this is the season, right, time of year that I need to do it, and that time of year was February, and they overreached, and the timing of it is what got them, completely out of control of what they had control of. And they could have waited a year, but they said, nope, now's the time. I've looked at the risk. And that's, a lot of us small business owners, we analyze risk very well. And so how do you fault someone for analyzing their risk and saying now's the time, and, and then get shut down in March. So,
well, to your point, Jared, I mean, it's every year, the biggest demand season for every industry here, it all builds off of tourism. Tourism
right.
feeds all of those other things, those other sub-industries. And when you suddenly take that away, that opportunity away, it's just going to have a pretty significant impact. And it has already on certain businesses. And so I don't necessarily see that changing, because tourism is such a vulnerable market. But it really is. It's something that we're trying to game plan for, and trying to help small businesses understand that this is longer than just the next 2 or 3 months. There's going to be residual impacts beyond that.
Right. For years to come. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I want you to talk about some of the upcoming webinars you have coming up with Blue Ridge Community College, because I definitely want people to know what's going on. So this will probably come out mid-May. So what you got coming up end of May and June?
Okay. So if we're looking at businesses that are coming out, webinars that are going to be coming out around the mid-May period, we're going to be already into our phase 1, and we're going to be looking to move into phase 2 of the reopening. And so one of the best ones that we've got right there at the beginning, right there in the middle of May, would be the phase 2 planning webinar. And that's with the governor's stay-at-home order lifting the restrictions based on the virus trends. So that will help businesses that are in that stage 2 planning, reopening, to better understand some of the different things that are going to apply to them. So, for example, restaurants, that would apply. And with those different types of businesses, they can have some takeaways that will really support them. So that's May the 14th, and that is a Thursday from 5 until 6 p.m., and that is online. And then on the 19th, we've got a phase 3, kind of in the same series of the original webinar. We've got a phase 3 planning webinar, and it applies to that final stay-at-home restriction period, and even more relaxation of different requirements. And so that's on May the 19th, and it also is going to be at 5, and it will run for an hour, so 5 to 6 p.m. on May the 19th. We've got quite a few other things coming up beyond that.
Where can people go to find all that?
Scheduled a yeah, so absolutely. So if people are interested in learning more about our events, they can go to blueridge.edu/SBC. And then they also can click on the button that's for the events and upcoming workshops. And once they click that, they'll see a full list of all of the different events that we've got coming up for the next month and a half to 2 months.
Excellent. Excellent. So we're running down on time right now. So I'm going to ask you the 3 questions that I ask all my podcast guests. The first is, in the last 6 months, what's the most influential book that you have read?
In the last 6 months. Okay. Well, I've read a couple, at least one or two. probably the most influential, and it doesn't have anything to do with business, but it has just been kind of eye-opening and just personally beneficial to me, has been a book called A New Earth by Eli Tolle. And it is just a fantastic representation of the mind and the person within the mind that is driving all of our actions and our decisions. And I think it really helps put clarity. So it's been a really interesting read. And I'm not quite finished with it yet, but being about halfway through, it's already been just pretty incredible.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've never heard of it, so I'll have to check that out. Very cool. Very cool. Second question. What is something over the last 6 months that you've had to say no to?
Over the last 6 months that I've had to say no to, showing up to work in the office.
Yeah.
No, I think that's something everybody's had to say no to, thanks to the governor and all the other elected officials that tell us what to do. Something I've had to say no to. I guess quite honestly, it's probably been the 14-hour days, because to start out with, when you're working with a new crisis, there's just so much information, there's so much to learn, there's so much to share, there's just so much to do, and I think after the first week or two of that, you've kind of got to be able to put that in perspective and understand that what you're doing is important. You've got to maximize your time. You've got to be effective and efficient. But ultimately, also, we're all living our personal lives, and this is a time, I think, to where we're rebuilding our economy and our society in a way that I think the foundation and the building blocks are right now. And so I think being able to say no to a certain amount of that work is probably a good thing for the long run.
Yeah, and I think you said it earlier when you said that this is not a short-term problem, that this is going to be a long-term fix. And I hope to see you and Blue Ridge Community College continue to be leaders in helping that foundation be built. So yeah, don't wear yourself out.
Well, I mean, a little bit of fatigue is a good thing, but absolutely, you got to be able to keep the long game, in perspective.
Yeah, there's a balance there. You could find it. So the last question: if I was to give you a billboard and millions of people would see this billboard, what would you put on the billboard?
Put something on the billboard. What are we going to put on the billboard? Evaluate your cash flow. Ensure that your expenses and your revenues are coming from the right sources. And I mean, ultimately, I think right now, understanding your customer and how that demand has changed is probably the biggest challenge for small businesses. I think that's the work billboard. That's the one that I think are some of the most important things for businesses to know. If we're talking about from a personal perspective, it'd just be look up and smile. I mean, you got to keep an attitude of positivity across the board. So maybe that could be the other side of the billboard.
Go two-sided. I like that. That's the first time I've heard the two-sided. I really like that. Well, Ben, listen, I want to give you an opportunity to let people know how to reach you. I know we got the Small Business Center website, but if people wanted to reach out to you, is there a email, phone number?
Yep, absolutely. So the best way to reach us is going to be by phone, is going to be 828-694-1658. And that is my direct line at our office that is forwarded to my phone. And so you can reach us there at any time. And then if you'd like to send us an email, you can reach us at SBC, that stands for Small Business Center. So sbc@blueridge.edu.
Well, thank you so much for being on the Jarrett Bellmund Show with me, Ben.
Absolutely. Thank you for hosting, and I appreciate the invitation.
Thank you for watching the Jared Bellmund Show. Be sure to hit subscribe, ring the bell for future notifications, and check out the description for more information.